When using the scale tool or the rotate tool, the shift key is a handy key to reposition the tool while the tool is still active with the previous transform settings, as I will demonstrate in this video. When you activate a transform tool like the rotate tool or the scale tool, and in this example I'm using the scale tool, with no action center set, then you can click anywhere in the viewport to reposition the widget. So if I click over here, the widget will reposition. That is something you probably already know, and I can do my scaling from that pivot point. Now, if I want to reposition that widget, then I can simply, again, left mouse button click in the viewport. But now, if I go to my tool properties, these settings, they actually have been applied. So if I click anywhere else, these settings have been applied. So I can start a new scale from that position, but my previous settings have been applied. And I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo, to go back to my original state and drop the tool. When you want to reposition the widget and have the previous settings still active, you can reposition the tool by left mouse button clicking while holding the shift key. So if I activate my scale tool again, click over here, do some scaling. Now if I hold the shift key and then left mouse button click in the viewport, the widget will reposition itself, but the tool properties, the settings over here, they will still be live. So you will see the geometry jump to another position. So I hold down the shift key, click over here, you see that my geometry jumps over there. My tool properties or the current tool settings are still live when holding the shift key. So shift, click over here, you see that my scaling now is being done over here. If I don't hold the shift key and click over here, now these settings have been applied and you see that my geometry did not jump. So I can do a new scale like that. And again, in this case, with these settings still live, I can hold the shift key if I want to reposition my widget, but keep my current settings, tool settings. So shift, click over here and you see that now the geometry jumps again. So the current settings are still live when holding the shift key. So this is kind of a bit of reverse functionality. Normally in Modo, when you hold the shift key, you start a new tool action. With the scale tool and the rotate tool, when you hold the shift key, you actually keep the current settings so that you can reposition the widget. This functionality with the shift key becomes very handy when you use it in combination with snapping. So I have my scale tool active. If I press the X key now snapping has been turned on, and in the background I have some geometry. Now I can click, for instance, on that vertex. So now my scale tool has been positioned over here. If I do some scaling from that point, and I'm going to adjust the tool properties and set it to 150%, just like that. Now the scaling has been performed with 150% in X and Y from that vert. Now these settings are still active as long as I don't click anywhere else in the viewport while the tool is still active. So as shown previously, if I want to reposition that widget, if I say, oh, actually I had to scale from that vertex, then I can hold the shift key and with snapping still active, click a shift left mouse button click on that vert, and you see that my geometry has jumped. But a thing to note is, in this case, I have to turn off snapping after having done so. So you will see the geometry jump to the rightful place. So I turn off snapping, you see the geometry has jumped. And now these settings, the scale in X and Y 150% have been performed from that point. Again, I'm a dumb user and I made another mistake. I want to reposition. Actually, I had to do my scaling from that vert over here, for instance. Again, turn on snapping, hold the shift key, left mouse button click on that vert, and turn off snapping again. And now these settings have been applied from over here. So a thing to note is, if you reposition while using snapping, it is best to turn off snapping after repositioning. And the functionality with holding the shift key also works with the rotate tool. So if I activate the rotate tool and for instance also my snapping, let's say that I want to do some rotation with this vertex as a pivot point. So with snapping on, I'm simply left mouse button clicking on that vertex. Now do some rotation and you see my rotation in Z is minus 51 degrees. So if I simply left mouse button click anywhere else in the viewport, these settings will get applied. But if I want to keep those settings live, I can hold the shift key and simply click on another vertex, like that, and then I need to turn off snapping. So you see now this minus 51 degrees has been applied from that vertex over there. So if I, for instance, do that, you see that scaling is being adjusted. So I'm going to set it back to minus 51. Again, I made another mistake. I want that vertex to be my pivotal point. So again, turn on snapping, hold down the shift key, click over there, turn off snapping, and you see that these settings have been applied now from that vertex. And to prove that it actually works, I have another cube over here and I'm going to reposition that in Z minus 51 degrees from the first time from that vertex. So turn on the rotate tool, turn on snapping, click on that vertex, and now simply put minus 51 degrees over there, drop my tool, and you see that it actually is in the very same position as my previous cube that I repositioned several times, whereas my last cube was repositioned straight off from that point with minus 51 degrees in Z.